Joining us now is a former special advisor to Tony Blair, Lance Price. You were there. You knew what he was going through. Did he intend to mislead anyone, do you think?
Well, just to put the record straight, I had left Downing Street before the Iraq invasion. No, it wasn't his intention to mislead people. It was his intention to put the best possible case for the action that he personally believed was essential in Britain's interests. And the way in which he came to that decision and the consequences of that decision have been discussed endlessly, including by, of course, the Chilcot report that went on for a very long time and took evidence from just about everybody. And what this Select Committee report today says is that unless some further evidence comes forward, which seems extremely unlikely, there won't be a parliamentary inquiry into whether he misled Parliament, and Chilcot, of course, said that he didn't deliberately mislead Parliament.
Yeah, the report says that the Prime Minister acted with complete disregard for Cabinet procedure, and since then no checks have been put in place to ensure it doesn't happen again. That seems extraordinary.
Yeah, and that is the key to this report that's come out this morning, in that they're trying to ensure that there are some safeguards. But they're pretty weak safeguards. I mean, what they're suggesting is that any future Prime Minister, Theresa May or anybody else who wanted to disregard the normal procedures of Cabinet would have to sign a little bit of paper that the Cabinet Secretary gave to them to say that that's what they were doing. The truth of the matter is that the vilification that Tony Blair has received is itself enough of a warning to any future Prime Minister not to behave in the way that he behaved. Nobody wants to be considered after their resignation as Prime Minister in the way that Tony Blair has been considered and hated, and demonstrations and all the rest of it.
Do you think they'll genuinely think that, though? And do you think they'll be sitting there thinking, well, do you remember what happened to Tony Blair?
Absolutely.
But Tony Blair was so strong in his conviction that that's what he felt like we should be doing.
Yes.
Would he have ever been swayed by the idea that actually this is going to come back down the line, or he's seen someone else suffer in the past? Not
at the time, and I think people would have said to him, some people did say to him, including the Foreign Secretary Jack Straw, look, you know, you don't have to do this, and I think a lot of people were aware of how it could go badly wrong, but you know, that's the benefit of hindsight, of course.
But that is decision-making and leadership, isn't it? That is the thing that other people are criticised for not having.
Absolutely.
And politics is a funny thing. We now know that the Iraq War was a disaster, really. I don't want to belittle those who lost their lives, but, you know, it didn't do what it was meant to do. The weapons weren't there, all of that. If it had been a triumph, if it had been like the Falklands War, would he have been held as a great decision-maker who led us in the right direction?
Regardless
that is the problem for leadership, isn't it? You don't know how it's going to turn out.
And you have to make a judgment. I mean, if we're going back in time, Margaret Thatcher made some very difficult decisions. Had the Falklands War gone the other way, she would be considered in a completely different way to the way in which she's considered now by historians and by ordinary people in Britain. And that, of course, is true of Tony Blair if things had gone differently in Iraq. But I do think, I mean, Prime Ministers do care about their reputation, and they've looked at what happened to Tony Blair and what he continues to face, and I don't think that's anything that anybody else would want to do. But you're right about the issue of leadership. It's perfectly possible in the future that a Prime Minister will look at the intelligence information they're given, the security information they're given, and think that a very, very hard decision, like the one that Tony Blair made, has to be taken. And under those circumstances, particularly when security of the realm of the nation is at stake, then the issue of Cabinet procedure is not necessarily the first thing on their minds.
No, of course. OK, Lance Price, former Special Advisor to Tony Blair, thank you very much for joining us this morning.